Hello, everyone. Welcome to Learn English with Profi Jaime. Today's story is the first of 7 stories where we'll explore important life lessons about how to make your money work for you through passive income. As you listen, you'll also learn some new words and how to form sentences using them, making English learning both fun and practical. So let's get started and stay with us till the end. Pay your future self first. Life in the small town of Oak Haven moved at a leisurely pace for young Elias. A hardworking mechanic at the local garage, each paycheck seemed to vanish as quickly as it arrived. He dreamt of owning his own garage, of building a comfortable life for himself and his family, but it felt like a distant dream. One day, Elias first met Mr. Henderson at the town's annual summer picnic. He was captivated by the old man, who, despite his age, seemed to possess an aura of quiet strength and wisdom. Mr. Henderson, with his twinkling eyes and a mischievous glint in his smile, was the life of the party, regaling the younger generation with tales of his travels and adventures. Elias, drawn to the old man's charisma, found himself drawn into a conversation. "You work hard, young man," Mr. Henderson observed, noticed Elias' calloused hands. "You have a good work ethic, but he added with a knowing smile, hard work alone isn't enough." Intrigued, Elias asked, "What else is needed, sir?" Mr. Henderson leaned in, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "You need to learn to invest in your future self." Elias, puzzled, asked, "How do I do that?" Mr. Henderson chuckled. "Ah, that's the key, isn't it? It's about prioritizing. Most people spend their money first and worry about the future later. But I believe in a different approach. Pay your future self first." Elias tilted his head, intrigued. "Pay my future self first?" "Exactly," Mr. Henderson explained. "Imagine yourself 5 years from now. Do you want to be in the same position you are today? Or do you want more? A better home? The freedom to travel? The ability to help your family?" Elias nodded. "Of course, I want more." "Then start building that future today," Mr. Henderson encouraged. "Before you spend a single dollar on anything else, a new video game, a night out with friends, set aside a portion of your earnings. Let's say 10%. Think of it as an investment in the person you want to become 5 years from now." Elias was hesitant. 10% seems like a lot. "It will feel like a sacrifice at first," Mr. Henderson acknowledged. "But think of it as an investment in your dreams. You're not spending it today. You're investing in the life you want to build. Trust me, young man, it will be worth it." To illustrate his point, Mr. Henderson shared a story from his own past. "When I was your age," Mr. Henderson began, "I worked long hours as a carpenter alongside my older brother Marco. We were both eager to make a good living. Marco, ever the pragmatist, was always preaching the importance of saving. Pay your future self first. He'd say, don't spend it all today. I, on the other hand, was young and impulsive. Every paycheck, I'd rush out to buy the latest tools, go out with my friends, or indulge in whatever whims struck me. Marco, meanwhile, would diligently set aside a portion of his earnings. No matter how much I teased him about being a miser. 'You'll never get anywhere saving all your money,' I'd scoff. 'You need to enjoy life a little.' Marco would just smile and say, 'I am enjoying life. I'm investing in my future.' At first I scoffed. Marco seemed to be missing out on all the fun. But as the years passed, I started to notice a difference. Marco bought a small plot of land while I still rented a room. He bought a sturdy workhorse while I walked to work. He even started his own small carpentry business while I was still working for someone else. I began to understand. Marco's sacrifices had paid off. He was building a solid foundation for his future while I was still struggling to make ends meet. It was a humbling realization. I saw firsthand how those small, seemingly insignificant savings had compounded over time, allowing Marco to achieve his goals while I remained stuck in the same place. From that day on, I changed my ways. I started to follow Marco's example, setting aside a portion of my earnings, no matter how tempting it was to spend it all. It was a difficult habit to break, but I remembered Marco's success and the regret I felt for not following his advice sooner. And you know what? Those small sacrifices eventually allowed me to open my own workshop. It was a dream come true, but more importantly, it taught me a valuable lesson: the importance of investing in your future self. Elias was deeply moved by Mr. Henderson's story. He realized that the old man's wisdom was not just abstract theory, but a proven path to success. From that day forward, Elias meticulously followed Mr. Henderson's advice. Every payday, he dutifully separated 10% of his earnings and deposited it into a savings account. It was a challenge at first. The urge to spend every dollar was strong, especially when his friends were out enjoying the latest movies or going out to eat in a restaurant. But Elias remembered Mr. Henderson's words: think of your future self. He imagined himself 5 years from now, owning his own garage, confident and successful. That vision kept him motivated. Slowly but surely, his savings began to grow. With each deposit, Elias felt a sense of accomplishment. He realized that by prioritizing his future self, he was taking control of his financial destiny. He started to explore ways to increase his income, working overtime, and taking on extra jobs. Elias continued to diligently save 10% of his earnings every payday. He would meticulously put aside a small portion of his income, a small act of self-discipline that grew more rewarding with each passing month. He even bought a little notebook to help himself track his progress. Watching the numbers grow steadily, a tangible representation of his growing financial security. The urge to spend every dollar was always present, a constant temptation. His friends would often tease him about his frugality, urging him to live a little. But Elias remembered Mr. Henderson's words: imagine yourself 5 years from now, living comfortably, achieving your dreams. That vision, along with the growing sense of accomplishment from watching his savings grow, kept him motivated. End of part 1. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next part of the story. Part 2. Control your expenses. Elias woke up early in the morning. The sun was just beginning to rise. He had been working hard at the garage fixing a difficult engine. He was very tired and very hungry. His stomach growled as he thought about breakfast. He walked to the small diner near his workplace. The smell of pancakes and bacon filled the air. It made his mouth water. He entered the diner and found an empty booth. The seat was cool against his back as he sat down. Elias picked up the menu and looked at the choices. His eyes stopped on the special of the day. It was a big plate with pancakes, eggs, bacon, and hash browns. He could almost taste the sweet syrup on the warm pancakes. He smiled and was ready to order. Just then someone spoke. "Mind if I join you?" Elias looked up and saw Mr. Henderson. He was an old man with kind eyes and a friendly smile. Elias had known him for a long time. "Of course, Mr. Henderson," Elias said, moving over to make space. "Would you like to have breakfast with me?" Mr. Henderson sat down and looked at the menu. He smiled and said, "It looks delicious, but I think I will just have coffee and toast. I try not to eat too much." Elias raised an eyebrow. "But isn't breakfast the best meal of the day?" Mr. Henderson chuckled. "Yes, but eating wisely is important. Just like spending money wisely." Elias was curious. "What do you mean, Mr. Henderson?" Mr. Henderson took a sip of his coffee and leaned back. Many people think making more money will solve their problems. But it's not just about how much you earn. It's also about how you spend your money. Elias listened carefully. "You work hard to earn money, right?" Mr. Henderson continued. "But then you spend it. You buy things you want, like a new video game or a fancy dinner. These things make you happy for a short time, but they don't help you in the future." Elias nodded slowly. He had never thought about it like that before. "The secret," Mr. Henderson said, "is to control your expenses. Do you know the difference between needs and wants? Elias thought for a moment. Needs are things we must have, like food, a home, and clothes. Wants are things we like but don't really need, like new shoes or a big TV. Mr. Henderson smiled. Exactly. It's okay to buy things you want, but only after taking care of your needs and saving for the future. Elias thought about it. So, I should spend my money wisely. Yes, Mr. Henderson said. Let me give you an example. Do you buy coffee here every morning? Elias nodded. Yes, I love my morning coffee. Mr. Henderson smiled. A cup of coffee here costs about $1.50. If you bought a thermos for $40 and a bag of coffee for $20, you could make your own coffee at home. You would save about $45 a month. That's $540 a year. Elias was surprised. He never thought about it that way. What about lunch? Mr. Henderson asked. Do you eat out every day? Elias nodded. Yes, it's easier than making lunch at home. But eating out costs money, Mr. Henderson said. How much do you spend on lunch each day? Elias thought for a moment. Maybe $10 a day. That's $200 a month, Mr. Henderson said. If you bring lunch from home just 3 times a week, you can save $60 a month. That's $720 a year. Elias' eyes widened. Wow, I didn't know I was spending so much on food. Mr. Henderson nodded. Small changes make a big difference. You don't need to stop enjoying life, but you should make smart choices. He sipped his coffee and continued. Think about this. If you save an extra $100 a month, you will have $1,200 at the end of the year. That money can help you buy something important in the future, like a house or a car. Elias thought about Mr. Henderson's words. He realized that saving money was not about being unhappy. It was about making smart decisions for a better future. After that day, Elias decided to change his habits. He bought a small notebook and wrote down all his expenses. He was surprised to see how much he was spending on small things. Coffee, snacks, and movie tickets added up quickly. He made a plan. He started making coffee at home. He packed his lunch instead of eating out every day. He also stopped buying things he didn't really need. At first, it was difficult. Sometimes he wanted to buy something just for fun. But then he remembered Mr. Henderson's advice. Control your expenses. Elias found joy in simple things. He enjoyed cooking his own meals. He spent more time with friends at home instead of going out. He even started saving money in a small jar, just to see it grow. 1 year later, Elias looked at his savings. He had saved over $1,500 just by making small changes. He felt proud of himself. Now he had money for emergencies and future plans. One morning, Elias went back to the diner. He ordered a simple breakfast, toast and coffee, just like Mr. Henderson. As he sipped his coffee, he smiled. He had learned an important lesson. Spending money wisely was not about saying no to everything. It was about making smart choices and thinking about the future. Elias looked up and saw Mr. Henderson walking into the diner. He waved and invited him to sit down. Mr. Henderson smiled and joined him. How are you doing, Elias? He asked. I'm doing great, Mr. Henderson, Elias said with a big smile. And I've been saving money, just like you taught me. Mr. Henderson chuckled. That's wonderful to hear, Elias. Remember, wealth is not just about earning money. It's about how you use it. Elias nodded. I understand now, and I feel good knowing I am building a better future for myself. Mr. Henderson lifted his coffee cup. To smart choices and a bright future. Elias lifted his cup too. To a bright future, he said. And with that, they enjoyed their simple, yet meaningful breakfast together. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next part of the story. Part 3, Make Your Money Work for You. The air was cool, and the smell of fallen leaves filled the small town of Oakhaven. Elias sat on a bench in the town square, resting after a long day at the garage. His hands were dirty from work, but he didn't mind. He felt proud because he had saved more money than ever before. over $8,000. As Elias enjoyed the quiet evening, he heard a familiar voice. Well, look who's here. Elias looked up and smiled. It was Mr. Henderson, the kind old man who had taught him important lessons about money. Mr. Henderson, Elias said, standing up. He shook the old man's hand. Mr. Henderson smiled. It's good to see you, Elias. I wanted to ask, how is your saving going? Elias grinned. It's going well. I've saved over $8,000. It's amazing how much I can save when I try. Mr. Henderson nodded. That's great. You're doing a good job saving for your future. But tell me, where do you keep your money? Elias hesitated. Well, I keep it safe under my mattress. Mr. Henderson laughed. Under your mattress? Elias, my boy, that's not safe. That's lazy. Elias frowned. What do you mean? I'm not spending it. It's just sitting there for when I need it. Mr. Henderson leaned forward. Elias, money is like a tool. If you don't use it, it does nothing. Right now, your money is like a wrench in your toolbox. It's just sitting there. It's not helping you build anything. Elias scratched his head. But isn't saving the most important thing? Saving is only the first step, Mr. Henderson said. The real secret is to make your money work for you. You see, money isn't just for keeping, it's for growing. If you invest your money, it can create more money over time. Invest. Elias asked, isn't that dangerous? What if I lose everything? Mr. Henderson smiled. Yes, some investments are risky, but not investing is also risky. If you keep your money under your mattress, it's not just sitting there, it's losing value. Every year, things become more expensive. What $8,000 can buy today might not be enough in 10 years. So, by doing nothing, you're actually losing money. Elias's eyes widened. I never thought about it like that. Most people don't, Mr. Henderson said. But that's why I want to help you understand. Investing is not about gambling. It's about putting your money in smart places so it can grow. Elias thought for a moment. Okay, but how do I start? I don't know anything about investing. That's where learning comes in, Mr. Henderson said. Investing is like any skill. It takes time to learn. But you don't have to be an expert. You just need to understand the basics and take small steps. He pulled out a small notebook and a pen. Let me explain something important, he said, drawing a small circle. This is your money. If you invest it, it can grow over time. This is called compound interest. He drew arrows around the circle. Let's say you invest $1,000. Over time, that money earns more money. If you leave it there, the new money also starts earning money. It's like a snowball rolling downhill. It gets bigger and bigger as it goes. Elias nodded slowly. So, the longer I leave my money, the more it grows? Exactly, Mr. Henderson said. That's why starting early is important. The more time your money has, the more it can grow. Elias looked at the drawing. This makes sense, but where should I invest? What should I do first? Mr. Henderson smiled. Start small and simple. A good place to begin is with something safe, like a group of strong companies. These are called index funds. They let you invest in many companies at once. That way, if one company does badly, you don't lose everything. He handed Elias the notebook. Here's your homework. Learn about index funds. When you feel ready, open an account and start with a small amount, maybe $500 or $1,000. Take your time and don't rush. Elias nodded, feeling determined. I'll do it. I'll start learning and take that first step. Mr. Henderson patted him on the shoulder. That's the spirit, Elias. Remember, the goal isn't to get rich fast. It's to build a strong future. With time, patience, and discipline, you'll be amazed at what you can achieve. As the sun set, Elias felt excited. He wasn't just saving money anymore. He was learning how to make it grow. And with Mr. Henderson's help, he knew he was on the right path. In a part 3, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next part of the story. Chapter 4: Guard Your Money from Loss. It was a cold winter morning. Elias sat at his small kitchen table, looking at his laptop screen. His heart sank. His investments had gone down. A few months ago, he had $8,000. Now he had just over $5,000. He felt a knot in his stomach. How had this happened? At first, everything went well. After talking to Mr. Henderson, Elias opened an account and put his money in index funds. This was a safe way to invest. But then Elias noticed something. Some companies in the index fund were doing very well. Their stock prices were going up fast. If these companies are doing so well, Elias thought, why not put my money in them? I could make even more money. So he took most of his money out of the index fund and bought individual stocks. At first, it was exciting. The stocks he picked went up. He felt smart. But then everything changed. The market dropped. The stocks fell overnight. The night before, Elias had over $15,000, almost double his savings. The next morning, he had only $5,000 left. Elias sighed and closed his laptop. He needed advice. He put on his coat and went to the town square. He knew Mr. Henderson often walked there in the morning. When Elias arrived, he saw Mr. Henderson sitting on a bench. The old man was feeding breadcrumbs to pigeons. He looked up and smiled when he saw Elias. "Elias, good to see you," Mr. Henderson said. "You look like something is bothering you." Elias sat down heavily. "I made a mistake with my investments." Mr. Henderson raised an eyebrow. "Oh, tell me what happened." Elias explained everything. He told Mr. Henderson how he had started with index funds, then moved his money to individual stocks and lost a lot of money. When he finished, he looked at Mr. Henderson, expecting him to be disappointed. But Mr. Henderson just nodded. "I see. Elias, you have learned an important lesson. Investing is not about making quick money. It is about patience and discipline." Elias frowned. "But those stocks were doing so well at first. I thought I was making a smart choice." Mr. Henderson shook his head. "That is the problem, Elias. When prices go up fast, people think they will keep going up. But the market does not work like that. Individual stocks are risky. They go up and down quickly. That is why it is important to guard your money from loss." Elias looked down at his hands. "I guess I was greedy. I wanted to get rich fast." "It is a common mistake," Mr. Henderson said kindly. "But remember, the goal is not to get rich fast. The goal is to grow your money over time. The best way to do that is to invest in things that are steady and safe." "Like what?" Elias asked. Mr. Henderson smiled. "Like the S&P 500. It includes 500 of the biggest companies in the country. When you invest in the S&P 500, your money is spread across many companies. If one company does badly, the others help balance it out. It is much safer than putting all your money in a few stocks." Elias nodded slowly. "So, I should have stayed with the index funds?" "Exactly," Mr. Henderson said. "Index funds are a great choice. They let you invest in many companies at the same time. They are simple, low cost, and they spread your money across different businesses. This reduces risk." Elias sighed. "I wish I had known that before." "Well, now you do," Mr. Henderson said. "And remember, investing takes time. The market goes up and down, but over many years it usually grows. The key is to be patient and not panic." Elias thought for a moment. "So, what should I do now?" Mr. Henderson leaned back. "First, take a deep breath. You have not lost everything. You have learned a valuable lesson. Second, go back to the basics. Move your money back into index funds or ETFs. These are like baskets of stocks that help reduce risk. Third, be patient. Do not try to guess when the market will go up or down. Just let your money grow over time." Elias felt relieved. "Okay, I will do that. And thank you, Mr. Henderson. I really needed this advice." Mr. Henderson patted him on the shoulder. "You are welcome, Elias. Remember, building wealth is a journey, not a race. Stay on the right path, and you will succeed. As Elias walked home, he felt determined. He had made mistakes, but he had also learned an important lesson. From now on, he would guard his money from loss. He would invest wisely and patiently. And with Mr. Henderson's guidance, he knew he was on the right track. In part 4, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next part of the story. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next part of the story. Part 5. Make of your home a profitable investment. Elias sat at his small kitchen table, looking at the papers in front of him. He had been saving money for a long time, and now he finally had enough to open his own garage. But as he did the calculations, he started to feel frustrated. Renting a space for the garage was very expensive, and it would take away much of his profit. He wanted to own his own business, but the numbers just did not look good. Just as he was about to give up, there was a knock at the door. Elias opened it and saw Mr. Henderson standing there, smiling as always. "Elias, I thought I'd stop by and see how you were doing," Mr. Henderson said. "May I come in?" "Of course," Elias said. "Actually, I need some advice." Mr. Henderson walked in and looked at the papers on the table. "Planning your garage, I see. How is it going?" Elias sighed. "Not very well. Renting a place is too expensive. I'm starting to think I'll never be able to open my own garage." Mr. Henderson nodded. "I see. Well, Elias, have you thought about buying instead of renting?" Elias looked surprised. "Buying? But I don't have enough money to buy a building for the garage and still pay my rent here." Mr. Henderson smiled. "What if I told you there's a way to do both? What if you could buy a building that gives you a place for your garage and a place to live?" Elias frowned. "What do you mean?" Mr. Henderson sat down. "There is a small apartment building for sale near here. It costs more than renting a garage, but it is a much better investment. You could use the ground floor for your garage and live in one of the apartments upstairs." Elias's eyes widened. "Live and work in the same place? That sounds very convenient." "Exactly," Mr. Henderson said. "You would save money on rent, and you would not have to travel to work. You could go upstairs for lunch, take breaks when you need to, and plan your business in the evenings. Plus, instead of paying rent to someone else, you would own the building." Elias thought for a moment. "But isn't buying a building too expensive?" Mr. Henderson shook his head. "Not when you think about the savings. You wouldn't have to pay rent for your home or your business. And over time, the building could even make money for you." "How?" Elias asked. "The building has several apartments. You could live in one and rent out the others. You will need to fix them up first, but after that, the rent from the other apartments could help pay for the building. Maybe you would even make extra money each month." Elias started to feel excited. "That sounds like a great idea, but I'm not sure I can handle something like that." Mr. Henderson smiled. "You don't have to do everything at once. First, buy the building and set up your garage. Live in one apartment, and take your time fixing up the others. When they are ready, you can rent them out. It's a long-term investment, but it will pay off." Elias felt hopeful. "Do you really think I can do this?" "I do," Mr. Henderson said. "This is a smart way to use your money. You will have a home, a business, and an investment all in one place." Elias nodded with determination. "Okay, I will look into it. Thank you, Mr. Henderson. I don't know what I would do without your advice." Mr. Henderson patted his shoulder. "You're welcome, Elias. The best investments give you both security and opportunity. I think this building could be a great choice for you." After Mr. Henderson left, Elias sat down and started making a new plan. He wasn't just opening a garage, he was building a future. And with Mr. Henderson's help, he knew he could make it work. In part 5, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next part of the story. Part 6, ensure a future income. The sun was setting, casting warm hues of orange and pink across the sky as Elias sat on the steps of his apartment building. He felt a deep sense of pride. His garage was running successfully, and the rental income from his apartments was steady. For the first time in his life, he truly felt like he was building something meaningful. Yet, as he sat there, a thought crept into his mind. What happens when I get older? What happens when I can't work anymore? While he had been focused on saving and investing in his business, he hadn't given much thought to the distant future. A wave of uncertainty washed over him. The next morning, determined to find answers, Elias sought out Mr. Henderson. As expected, he found the wise old man in the town square, feeding breadcrumbs to the pigeons. "Mr. Henderson," Elias called out, "do you have a moment?" Mr. Henderson turned and smiled. "Of course, Elias. What's on your mind?" Elias sat down next to him on the bench. "I've been thinking about the future. I've worked hard to save and invest in my garage and apartments. But what happens when I'm too old to work? How can I make sure I'll always have money coming in?" Mr. Henderson nodded. "That's a wise question, Elias. The money you've saved so far is important, but now it's time to think beyond today. You need to ensure that your money continues to grow for the years ahead, even when you're no longer working." Elias frowned. "But how do I do that?" Mr. Henderson chuckled. "Let me explain. Long-term investments. Right now, your money is easily accessible. That's great for emergencies, but some of it should be set aside for the future. Money that you won't touch for years, but that will grow over time and support you when you need it most." Elias leaned forward. "How does that work?" "There are two main ways," Mr. Henderson said. "First, you can open a retirement account like an IRA. Second, you can create more passive income, like the rental money you're already earning." Retirement accounts. Mr. Henderson took out a small notebook and drew a simple chart. An IRA is a special account for retirement. You put money in now, and it grows over time, but you can't withdraw it until you're older without facing a penalty. This forces you to save for the future. Elias raised an eyebrow. "How does it grow?" "Through compound interest," Mr. Henderson explained with a knowing smile. "It's the same principle we talked about when you first started saving, making your money work for you instead of just sitting there." Elias nodded, remembering their earlier conversation. Back then, he had learned that just saving money wasn't enough. It had to be invested wisely to truly grow. Mr. Henderson continued, "Think of it this way. When you first started saving, you kept your money under your mattress. Then you began to put your money into an account that earned interest. But remember, here's the real magic. Not only does your initial deposit earn interest, but that interest also earns interest. It keeps building on itself." He gave an example. "Let's say you invest $100 today with a 7 annual return. After 1 year, you'll have $107. The next year, you're not just earning 7 on the original $100. You're earning 7 on the full $107. And the year after that, you earn interest on an even larger amount. Over time, your money multiplies." Elias leaned back, impressed. "So it's just like when I started making my savings work for me. Only this time it's for many more years in the future." Mr. Henderson nodded. "Exactly. The sooner you start, the more time your money has to grow. It's all about making smart choices now, so your future self can reap the rewards." Elias's eyes widened. "That sounds incredible. But what if I need the money before I'm old?" "That's exactly why you don't put all your money here," Mr. Henderson said with a knowing smile. "Think of your money like a team. Each player has a different role. The cash you've saved so far is for emergencies or opportunities that come up now. But this money? This is for your future self, years down the road." He continued, "You should only put a percentage of your income into long-term investments like this. Enough to grow over time, but not so much that you don't have access to money when you need it. Balance is key." Elias nodded slowly. "So, I still need savings for today, but I also need to think about the future." "Exactly," Mr. Henderson said. "The goal is to make sure you're taking care of both now and later." Passive income. Mr. Henderson then gestured toward Elias's apartment building. You're already building passive income with your rentals. Passive income is money you earn without actively working for it. It's one of the best ways to secure your future. Elias nodded. I see. The rent comes in every month, even if I'm not working. Exactly, Mr. Henderson said. And as you save more, you can invest in another property or other assets that create passive income, like dividend-paying stocks. Elias felt a sense of determination. I want to do this. I want to make sure I'm taken care of when I'm older. Mr. Henderson smiled. Good. Start by opening an IRA. Even if you only contribute $50 or $100 a month, it will grow significantly over time. And keep growing your passive income streams. You're already on the right path. Elias nodded with newfound confidence. I'll do it. Thank you, Mr. Henderson. I feel much better knowing I'm planning ahead. That afternoon, Elias took action. He opened an IRA and set up automatic monthly contributions. He also planned to reinvest some of his rental income to purchase another property. As he reviewed his financial plans, he felt a deep sense of peace. He wasn't just building wealth for today. He was securing his future. As the sun set, Elias stood outside his apartment building, feeling hopeful. In just over a year, he had come so far. And with Mr. Henderson's guidance, he knew his future was bright. In part 6, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the last part of the story. Part 7. Increase your ability to earn. The sun was shining brightly as Elias stood outside his garage, watching his employees work. He felt proud of how far he had come. His garage was successful, his rental properties were bringing in steady income, and he had made smart investments for his future. But as he looked around, he felt a strange restlessness. I've achieved so much, he thought, but what's next? How can I keep growing? That evening, Elias decided to visit Mr. Henderson. He found the old man sitting on his porch, sipping tea and watching the sunset. Mr. Henderson, Elias said, can I talk to you? Mr. Henderson smiled. Of course, Elias. Sit down. What's on your mind? Elias sat down and took a deep breath. I've come so far. I've saved money, invested in my business, and even bought rental properties. But I feel like I've hit a wall. How can I keep growing? How can I earn even more and become even wiser? Mr. Henderson nodded thoughtfully. Elias, you've learned the importance of saving, investing, and planning for the future. But there's one more lesson you need. Increase thy ability to earn. Mr. Henderson leaned back in his chair. Increasing your ability to earn is about two things: developing your skills and expanding your opportunities. The more you learn and grow, the more valuable you become. And the more valuable you are, the more you can earn. Elias looked curious. But how do I do that? I'm already working hard. Mr. Henderson smiled. Working hard is important, but working smart is even more important. Let me explain. First, Mr. Henderson said, you need to keep improving your skills. Whether it's your craft as a mechanic or your knowledge of investing, continuous learning will open new doors for you. He gave an example. Think about your garage. You're a good mechanic, but what if you learned about the latest technology in cars? What if you became an expert in electric vehicles or hybrid engines? That knowledge would make you even more valuable to your customers. Elias nodded. I see. If I improve my skills, I can offer more services and attract more customers. Exactly, Mr. Henderson said. And it's not just about your job. You can also improve your financial skills. Read books about investing, listen to podcasts, or join groups where people discuss money. The more you know, the better decisions you'll make. Second, Mr. Henderson continued, you need to look for new opportunities. By growing your skills and knowledge, you can take on new challenges and create new income streams. He gave an example. You've already started renting out your apartments. That's a great way to earn passive income. But what if you bought another property? Or what if you started a side business, like selling car parts online. The more you explore, the more opportunities you'll find. Elias thought for a moment. I've always wanted to teach others what I've learned. Maybe I could start a workshop or write a book about my journey. Mr. Henderson's eyes lit up. That's a fantastic idea. Teaching others is a great way to share your knowledge and earn extra income. And who knows, it might lead to even bigger opportunities. Mr. Henderson leaned forward. Another important part of increasing your ability to earn is surrounding yourself with the right people. Learn from those who inspire you and share your own. He gave an example. Join a group of successful business owners or investors. Listen to their stories, ask questions, and share your own journey. You'll be amazed at how much you can learn from others. Elias nodded. I've never thought about that before. I've always worked alone, but maybe it's time to connect with others. Inspired by the conversation, Elias decided to take steps to increase his earning potential. The next day, he signed up for a course on electric motor repair. He also started reading books about investing and joined a local group where people discuss financial strategies. At his garage, Elias began mentoring young mechanics, sharing the lessons he had learned from Mr. Henderson. He even started exploring the idea of creating online content about his journey, hoping to inspire others. One evening, as Elias sat in his garage reading a book about investing, he felt a sense of peace. He realized that financial success wasn't just about money. It was about growth, learning, and helping others. He thought about how far he had come, from struggling to save any money each month to now running a successful business and earning passive income. Elias had built a strong financial foundation. But he knew his journey wasn't over. By increasing his ability to earn, he was not just building wealth. He was building a life of meaning and fulfillment. As the sun set, Elias closed his book and smiled. He knew that with Mr. Henderson's guidance and his own determination, the future was bright. The end. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our other stories. Also,